The moment the rear starts getting sketchy, it feels fast. It kind of feels like you're finally driving the car instead of just pointing it. And that's the trap, because every time I leaned into that rotation a little more than I needed to, the lap didn't get quicker, it just got louder. The second I stopped chasing that feeling and drove it clean, 2 full seconds disappeared. Coming out of the pits now, everything feels normal for about 2 seconds, and then you remember the tires are stone cold. The rear doesn't feel planted yet. Even just rolling into throttle, it feels light underneath you, like the car is sitting on top of ice instead of digging into it. I'm not pushing, I'm just bringing temperature into it and telling myself to be smooth with no sudden inputs. Mid-engine cars don't need much to react when there's no grip back there. Even small throttle changes feel amplified. And right here is where it reminds you. I lift the throttle and the rear just goes into full oversteer mode. I catch it, but that's the warning. Grip isn't something you get to assume yet. And when the car reacts like that, you don't try to be clever. You brake earlier than you think you need, and you let the chassis settle before committing to throttle. Cold tires force discipline whether you like it or not. You just manage what the car gives you. And ironically, that's usually when drivers are the cleanest. Now the tires are starting to come in and I'm behind another car, so I'm not fully attacking. But internally something shifts. The car feels better, and that's when you start wanting more out of it. You want it to rotate harder, and you want to carry more speed into the corner. Then at that point, you start measuring how fast you can arrive at the apex instead of how early you can get back on the throttle. Nothing dramatic happens. The lap time barely changes, but the intention changes. Here I stop pretending I'm being disciplined and I just test it. The NSX is mid-engine, so if you ask for rotation abruptly, it'll absolutely give it to you. But it feels good. The rear steps out progressively, and it feels like you're dancing right at the edge. That sensation is addictive and it feels fast. But watch what happens right after the fun part. I'm waiting before I can commit fully to throttle, even if it's half a second. It's quite obvious with the lap time, and you'll see what I'm talking about later. I keep playing with it here because honestly it's fun. I'm letting it slide more than I probably should, which ends up becoming a trap. Understanding where oversteer begins feels like progress, but living in that extra slip angle doesn't automatically make you efficient. And the thing is, every time I add that little correction or hesitate on throttle, it's tiny in the moment, but it adds up down the straight. At this point, I kind of realize I've already felt what the rear wants to do. So there's no point poking at it again, and instead of trying to squeeze that extra bit of rotation out of it, I just back it down slightly and focus on getting the car straight earlier than I was before. Because every time I was holding that little bit of slip, it felt fun, but it also meant I wasn't fully committed to throttle as soon as I could have been. So this time I go in a touch calmer, not slow, just calmer. And I let it rotate once, then I'm thinking about the exit almost immediately, instead of how it looks mid-corner. And that's when it changes. It doesn't feel more aggressive, it actually feels more controlled. But I'm back on power earlier and the car just drives forward instead of hovering at that balance point. You can see it in the gap ahead. I'm not sending it any harder than before, I'm just not wasting that little moment waiting for the rear to finish moving around. And that's where the 2 seconds come from. The lap time drops without it ever feeling like I pushed harder. After proving it to myself, I go back to having fun, inducing a little rotation again and feeling how progressive the rear is when you're deliberate versus when you're greedy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Understanding the limit matters. But there's a difference between knowing where the edge is and constantly triggering it because it feels good. Oversteer feels fast because it's pretty dramatic. It gives you a lot of feedback and it makes you feel involved. But exit speed is quiet. It doesn't announce itself mid-corner, it just shows up at the end of the straight when the gap grows or shrinks. Mid-engine cars don't hide impatience. They amplify it. If you're abrupt, the rear reminds you. And if you're greedy on rotation, you'll end up paying for it. And today, the NSX made something really clear. The moment I stopped chasing sensation and just protected the platform, the lap time responded instantly. You can certainly chase the feeling of being on the limit, or you can build speed that compounds over the whole lap, but that's not always going to be the same thing, and most drivers don't realize which one they're choosing. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.